Hello, everyone. Welcome to Biz Chats, a digital program where I interview expert guests on a wide variety of business topics. Today, I'm very excited to talk with Max and about growth and how he grew his company from 0 to 175,000 users. Max is the founder of Finimize, a UK startup making finance accessible for millennials. Before Finimize, Max co-founded an e-commerce startup with 200 employees and sold it in 2015. He's also the mentor at Techstars and Startup Bootcamp, and was named one of Forbes 30 Under 30 for 2016. So some pretty impressive stuff here. So let's invite him to the conversation now and let's get started. We have some questions here to ask him. Hey Max, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm very happy that you're able to make it. I know it's later in the evening in the UK. You are our first international expert guest on Biz Chat, so this is a milestone for us here.
Yeah, it's not too late, so everybody's still busy at work, so it's all fine.
Got it. Well, appreciate it. I know I definitely respect your time. We got an hour scheduled here, and I have a few questions. I did let everyone know that the topic for this segment is around growth and how you grew your great startup, which I'm a fan of, from 0 to 175,000 users, which, like I mentioned on our test run, is definitely not an easy task. So I'm going to jump right into it. Where did you get the idea for Finimize? Where did that come from?
Sure. So it's kind of the cliche startup story, as in it was a problem that I encountered myself. So basically, what happened was I was in my mid to late 20s, and everybody around me, specifically sort of parents, and then kind of like all the media that you were reading, basically started saying, "Hey, you got to start saving up some money." So I took that to heart, and every month, essentially just took money from my salary and put it onto a savings account. And one day I opened up my bank account and I looked at my savings account and I saw, great, I've actually built up some savings now. But the natural follow-up question to that is, all right, what do I actually do with these savings? And I'd studied economics, I've worked at a bank before and all that stuff, and so I've heard of all the different things that you could be doing. But when push came to shove, I didn't really feel comfortable making that decision and taking that step. And so what I did is I kind of, as you do, I just started asking friends of mine, what do you guys do? A lot of them were in the finance industry, and I pretty quickly found out when it came to their personal finances, interestingly, they were equally as clueless as I was. So then I figured, okay, I'm just going to go get professional advice. I couldn't afford a financial advisor, and so just went to my retail bank, and all they did is they sat me down, started asking me a bunch of very generic questions, and then ultimately basically laid out all of the brochures with all the products onto the table. And at that stage, I figured, all right, this is actually not really advice. This is a sales pitch. And so was pretty frustrated by that.
Which box do you fit in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like you've laid out all the products that I could be using, and they all happen to have your logo on it. And so I was pretty frustrated by that experience. So I went back home and I started Googling and was basically looking for a platform that could provide me with independent and holistic financial advice, and I just couldn't find anything. So that was then the genesis of Finimize, and sort of the mission that we're now embarking on is that we want to empower people to become their own financial advisors. We're doing that basically by creating a toolkit that consists of financial news and financial education, and also then financial advice ultimately. But that was sort of in a nutshell, I guess, how Finimize came about.
Yeah, and you're so right. Financial literacy is a concern, even in Canada. So I think you're doing something great. Like I said, I'm a fan. I'm a follower. So kudos to you. Now, as far as the whole conversation around growth, what was your main strategy to get from 0 to 175,000 users?
So first of all, we never spent any money in marketing. Um, so it was all unpaid stuff. Um, and in a nutshell, I guess it was a lot of experimentation. Um, so I'm a really big fan of this book called Traction, by Gabriel Weinberg. Um, and essentially, what they lay out is this framework, how you can think about building up traction. And they come up with this concept of the bullseye framework. And so you can basically picture a bullseye, and you have the outer rings in the bullseye, which is basically you just try out everything, everything that you can imagine. How possibly could you grow? You just try it out. Then you write it down. This is what I tried. These were the results. You then go to the next inner ring on the bullseye, and that basically is stuff that worked or that seemed to be working, and you kind of like try more of that, and you kind of keep doing that until you have like 3 to 5 um, growth strategies where you're getting good results, and those might change over time. So in the beginning for us, it was a lot of like PR stuff that helped us. So we got featured on some blogs, we got featured on Product Hunt. That gave us like an initial boost. Then we got featured in like larger publications. But now, for example, like that doesn't really matter to us that much in terms of pure growth, just because the sheer volume of those signups don't really move the needle as much anymore. And so now for us, it's much more important word of mouth, referrals. We do partnerships with Quartz and other publications. And that's basically kind of been what we've been doing so far, but we just keep digging and we just keep finding new channels.
Like that. I like that a lot. All right. So with that, with that strategy that you just laid out, in your opinion, what was the biggest challenge?
Um, I think at the end of the day, it can be sometimes demotivating if you don't find the traction that you're looking for, and so it's all about being persistent and just keep hammering at it. I think one way to look at it is you're building a tunnel with a teaspoon, and I think a lot of people are turned off by that, and so that can be frustrating and that can be challenging. But I think just keep at it, keep being sort of iterative, keep being structured and systematic about it. And then, it's just really kind of a matter of time. I mean, you always think of these things, and I love hearing the startup stories where, for example, Pinterest or Airbnb took them, 2 years or something to get it off the ground. And so you always hear this, like, it was an overnight success that took 10 years or whatever. So it's just really a matter of persistence and time.
Yeah, and patience. That's great. Now, when looking at not a startup, obviously, so now focused on an established business, this business owner out there, do you believe there's still room for them to grow? And if so, how? Like, what's your vision for an established business to grow more now?
You mean specifically for us or in general?
Specifically for you, if you like, or in general, like this, like we're talking right now to this established business, been there, been around for like 10 years. Do you believe there's still room for them to grow? And if so, how do you see that?
Yeah, I think there's always room to grow. I think it's a question of taking risks. I think the best example is Amazon, and I think you always need to try and create something new that will basically create a new product that will put your current product out of business. I think that's one way to look at it. And I think I'm a huge fan of what Amazon is doing because they just take these massive bets, and I think they've been around for ages as well, compared to startups, and they're now one of the most valuable companies in the world. So it's one of the most valuable companies in the world. So I think it's a question of risk, just taking big bets and feeling comfortable with that.
always having like that forward thinking approach, right? Where can we go? I like that idea, and I've heard of that as well. Constantly being in a battle with yourself and always try to put yourself out of business. So, and
Exactly.
I think if that's how you're thinking all the time, that's where the growth can be inspired from.
Exactly.
Okay, got it, got it. Okay, well, that's halfway. So I do want to remind everyone listening in now or on demand later to go check out Finimize. Like I said, I've said it multiple times. I'm a big fan. Go to finimize.com, check out what they're doing, and contact them if you need any help with finance-related things. Now for the next set of questions, what's your opinion on buying an existing business? Do you think it's a great way to accelerate growth? Like, would you ever see yourself in that position one day?
So I've sold a business, and I think the company who bought us did that for growth.
There you
So
go.
we got bought by a traditional media company, and they basically, I think their aim is to have like 50% of their profits coming from digital. So they have been doing a lot of M&A. So it's definitely a way how you can grow. I think sort of in the business that we're in, we probably wouldn't necessarily buy for growth, but we'd probably buy more for technology, for
Yeah.
to enhance our product, and in order to do that, making the product better, and then thereby, driving usage, and thereby driving word of mouth, i.e., thereby also driving growth. At the end of the day, I guess it all boils down to growth. So it's definitely a strategy if you have the money. There's obviously a lot of instances where, and I read some stats, I can't remember them exactly, how most M&A deals actually fail, um, which is interesting. I think the one company that I can think of that does a pretty good job at it is Facebook. So, back in the day when people were saying Instagram was crazy,
Yeah.
that's probably one of the best M&A deals ever.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree
Certainly,
with that.
certainly in recent years, and then WhatsApp again. But I think a lot of the cases, especially with larger, more established corporates, they often buy it and shut it down. Then it's not really the most productive or constructive M&A activity. But I'm by no means an expert on it.
Yeah, no, and I kind of agree with where you're going with this as well, because even if we take another, I guess, example with Amazon purchasing Whole Foods, right?
Exactly.
I think that's a pretty awesome acquisition, because I personally think they're laying down the foundation for Amazon Go eventually,
Yeah, absolutely. That was
as a
another
great,
good example.
yeah, as a great way to distribute that technology. So, okay, great. So now, do you think so from your experience with Finimize and watching the finance world and also the M&A world, do you have any, I guess, input on ways certain businesses are increasing their value?
Um, I think at the end of the day, it's a very sort of startup-y way of thinking at it, but I really believe in it, and that's this concept of um, building something that people really love. And the other day, I was watching this interview. It was probably the most high-profile panel discussion that you could have, organized by Goldman Sachs. It had Lloyd Blankfein from Goldman Sachs, had Warren Buffett, it had Michael Bloomberg and Jack Dorsey, and they
Wow.
all kind of started talking about, I guess their businesses, and then they all were able to give it a piece of advice to entrepreneurs. And the piece of advice that Warren Buffett gave is exactly that. So he said, if you're the CEO or the founder or whatever of a company, there's really just one thing that you need to do, and that's delight your customer. And if you manage to do that, then everything else will sort it. And I really believe in that as well. And we're seeing that as well. For us, a lot of the growth that we've seen to date has been from users telling their friends, colleagues, etc. And what's always crazy to me is this stat that I found out the other day, where of the people who refer Finimize to their friends, colleagues, whatever, 80% of those use the word love when they talk about us, which
Wow.
to me was like mind blowing because at the
And
end of the day, we do.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I love it. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
Wow.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's to me that seems crazy because it's at the end of the day, it's still a fairly dry topic. We're talking about inflation, interest rates, all that.
Sure.
But we try and make it fun, and we try and be sort of approachable and lovable, and I'm sure we could do a lot more. But I think this concept, and we have this mantra with Infinimize, like one of our mantras is enlighten and delight. That's kind of how we think about the user experience, and I think that's really then what drives value, because that then increases brand loyalty, that increases stickiness. But it's one of those things, you just constantly have to be doing it. It's not a thing that you can kind of check the box. So that's kind of how I think about it.
And once again, I agree with you, and not to be riding the Amazon wave, but Jeff Bezos, he touched on that as well as far as laying out that every business has a certain approach, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's product obsessed, tech obsessed, business model obsessed, but then there's also customer obsessed, right?
Exactly.
And he said that, in his opinion, that's what they've been prioritizing at Amazon. And I think when you prioritize that, the deliverables are increase in value, right? For not only
Exactly.
the customer, but for the business themselves. So, no, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, what's interesting there, and I think Amazon has kind of proven that, is it makes you take a very long-term view. If you think about the
Yes.
customer, it makes you take a long-term view, and Amazon is a great example where that is playing out to be the right decision.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
So
he said that as well. He said, last quarter is been baked already. They're
mhm,
thinking, 5 years from now. And when
exactly.
you have that customer obsessed approach, you could have that long term thinking, which is ideal for a business. All right.
Absolutely.
Now I think this is up your alley as well. So, in your opinion, what are you seeing as far as the best ways companies are financing acquisitions? Like, what are you seeing in the public sector? And if possible, have you seen any private plays as well? Like, how are people financing these acquisitions?
As in, like, where is the funding coming from to buy the companies?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, exactly.
well, I guess in the private sector, especially in the startup world, it's often we actually reported on an acquisition in the startup world in today's newsletter, a challenger bank buying another fintech, and that is clearly financed by a venture capital. And then I guess in the public markets, Amazon, great example again. Facebook, presumably they just finance it out of their cash flow.
There you go.
So I guess it really depends on the stage of the company.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Last question here. What is one surprising fact about Finimize?
So Finimize today that most people know as a newsletter, but it was never intended to be.
Oh,
So basically, the way it started is I put up a website myself. I got a few folks to produce content. Kind of the interesting thing is actually is that the format, the short and the three questions: what's going on here? What does it mean? Why should I care? That's been there from day one. But it was a website, and in the beginning, nobody looked at the website. It was the classic, like you launch a product and it's crickets.
yeah.
So then I was like, I'm just going to email people, tell them I have a website. So I started emailing people, hey, check out this website. And I saw that people were opening the emails, but not going to the website. So then I figured, all right, I'm just going to give them a little snippet, and then maybe that will sort of get them intrigued, and they'll click through to the website. And again, I just saw people sort of, reading the email, but they weren't clicking through the website. So then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put all the content into the email. And that's how the newsletter came about. It was not
Makes sense.
a, it was not a strategic sort of decision. at the outset, it was really just, again, following users.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that is actually very surprising because I like for myself, I actually thought it was intended for the newsletter. So that's
Yeah.
an interesting story. No, I appreciate that. Well, this does bring us to the end. I do appreciate your time. The way I end every Biz Chats is with a rapid fire question. So first thing that comes to the top of your mind, just answer it. What was the last song you listened to?
So I'm from Berlin originally,
Okay.
which has a very big techno scene. So I think I was listening to actually, which I haven't done in ages, but for some reason it came on my Spotify today, and it was a techno song from a DJ called Adriatic.
Okay. What was the last movie you watched?
The final year on Netflix, the final year of Barack Obama in the White House.
Oh, actually, I did too. That
Yeah.
is funny. And what was the last book you read?
Principles by Ray Dalio.
Perfect. You are the quickest to answer these questions, by the way. I just want to let you know.
Good.
I always,
I hope that means I was concise and not.
Yeah, no, you were. No, this has been perfect. So I do appreciate the time you took out of this. I do appreciate the team at Finimize to bring this all together. This has been, in my opinion, a very insightful conversation. A lot of people are going to appreciate this. We are going to download this and put it on YouTube to share with everyone. So if you don't have a chance to listen in live, you can watch it on demand. And my little, I guess, plug is if you're interested in buying or selling a business, anyone listening, check out mybizon.com. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Max. And we'll chat
Thank
next week
you.
again. Okay. Thanks, Max.
Thanks.
Have a
Thanks.
good
Bye
one.
bye.
Bye.